Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Renata Stankowska. I'm the Assistant Director for Membership Services here at ODK. And today we're joined by Michael Preston, who's a ODK initiate from East Carolina Circle, and he'll be leading us in a session to talk more about career development and how you can transfer your skills and experiences into meaningful connections and opportunities. So thank you so much, Michael, for joining, and thank you all for popping into the session. If others trickle in, I'll be sure to let them in, but for time's sake, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'll turn it over to you, Michael.
Thank you so much. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. Just get a quick nod. Great. And also, here's my screen. Uh, Hi, I'm Michael Preston. I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Success at Texas State University. Been a member of the team here for about 2 years. During that time, I get an opportunity to work with um, a number of different programs, including career services, as well as all of our academic engagement programs. That includes our tutoring center, disability services, all sorts of other enhancement programs that we have, including a lot of our scholarship programs for students who are on certain pathways. So, uh, pretty boring introduction. In terms of my connection to Omicron Delta Kappa, I was inducted into the East Carolina Circle in their first circle induction in 1994. Um, and that really set me on a lifelong dedication to this organization, something that I really, truly love to talk about and help promote. Um, at Stephen F. Austin, we started a circle there while I was working at SFA, and that circle became, kind of a national model for how ODK can really expand and grow. And really proud of the work that we did there as well. I'm working on our people here at Texas State, so we'll see where this goes. Unfortunately, that kind of work reports to a different department, so I just have to throw that in there. When I'm not working, I'm enjoying the Central Texas lifestyle. Here's a map of where I live, right in the middle of San Marcos, Texas. Love the Hill Country area. As a matter of fact, this weekend for the holiday weekend, we're going to go up into the Hill Country into Wimberley and hit up a couple wineries and enjoy some lunch and just enjoy the beautiful weather. So if you don't find me here, you'll either find me in the Hill Country hanging out at a winery or a brewery, or I'll be at a concert somewhere in Austin or San Antonio. So it's a great place to live. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about social capital and building your social capital roadmap. Um, just to let you know, I got into the concept of social capital a few years ago as a way of really understanding how, especially students who come from environments in which they had maybe they were the first in their family to go to college, maybe they're coming from a small town in Texas somewhere, no matter where it is. How do students really build the kind of networks that are necessary in today's employment world to ultimately achieve their career goals? Because in many cases, it's not necessarily, this is the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In this case, it really is about who you know and how you exploit those conversations along the way. So, first off, I want to, start off with an activity. Uh, and think about telling your story. So, if you've got a sheet of paper nearby, and feel free to grab one real quick. If not, just kind of do this in a little bit of a kind of a thought process there. Think about a page with four squares on it, and on each square, you're going to start really building together what your overall narrative is going to be. And we're going to revisit this a little later. So maybe you don't write it down now, but maybe you keep this in mind as we go through some of these slides. On square one, I want you to think about what you wanted to be when you grew up when you were 10 years old. And I can tell you what I wanted to be, and it wasn't going to happen, but I sure as heck wanted it to be. I thought I was going to be a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. That's what I thought I was going to be. Now, there's a lot of things that got in the way of that. Um, the first thing that I thought, and you could just drop it in the chat if you want to, instead of having folks kind of have to take themselves off of camera or microphone. What did you want to be when you were 10 years old? Maybe drop that in the chat. Um, of course, I didn't end up being a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. I am slow. I am chubby. I can't jump. There's lots of things that really get in the way. And so, Jason, you want to be a pro football player as well. You're probably better at football than I was. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to be at age 10. Now, in square two, what do you want to be doing 10 years from now? What is it? What does that look like? Um, And I would love to find out, like, from this day forward, what kind of things would you like to be doing? I can tell you what I would like to be doing 10 years from now, and that's retired. I'm 53. I would like to be one of those people that retires early, but that's me. I can tell you when I was at college student age, when I was at East Carolina University, when I was inducted into Omicron Delta Kappa and someone asked me that question, I could have told you that I wanted to be a news anchor. I was working for an NBC affiliate as an assistant producer and was really getting into television news. Now, I didn't end up into that for my total career, but it definitely shaped what I thought I was going to be 10 years from now. And then two other things to just keep in mind and think about this and consider as you're going through this session. What is one super interesting thing about you? And it does not have to be about work. You could come up with just about anything that might be really super interesting. It might be something that happened to you, might be something that you did. Um, and I can tell you that one super interesting story that I often bring up, and actually Jamie, who's on the call here, she can say the same thing. I'm pretty sure, and that is I was around when the Space Shuttle Columbia exploded over Texas, and actually had pieces of the space shuttle in my yard and served as a leader in communications efforts between NASA and the press during the space shuttle disaster recovery efforts. And I could honestly say that for me, when I tell that story, people immediately stop and listen because how many people do they know have actually been a part of something like that? And so it's an interesting thing about me that was unique. What is something that you could have that you could pull from that if you're at a cocktail party or something and someone asks you that question, how can you wow them? And then last, what is one time that you shined? What is one time when you were able to walk up onto a stage and feel like you met the moment? And we love to, when we're interviewing candidates, to learn more about when are they at their best and how can we get those folks there. For me, once again, because I'm presenting, so I just want to give you an example. About 5 years ago, I was coordinating a national student success conference. And this national student success conference had over 1,000 people there. And our keynote speaker, he had plane issues and could not get there. And so we all of a sudden had this need for a keynote speaker. I actually stepped up and delivered the keynote speech uh, that I wanted to do to this audience of over 1,000 people and got a standing ovation. And it was just one of these moments where the night before, I didn't think I was going to be on stage. And then by the next day, there I was having to convince a whole bunch of people that I was supposed to be there all along and somehow pulled it off. And it was one of those moments when I walked away, I could not have been more proud about myself, but I also collapsed into a bubble because I was like, I'd been doing all this work and then I like almost the adrenaline wore off. And then I just like the rest of the day I was useless, which was fine because I did the one thing that I was having to do. And so, um, anyway, so with all that being said, we're going to talk about social capital. But we're going to start by how do people get jobs in today's world? I get a chance to work with career services, and I can tell you that what we're seeing right now is students are applying for jobs online. Businesses are reviewing applications online, usually with AI. Nobody's getting hired. The average college student right now, in their first 2 months post graduation, will send over 150 job applications and will hear on average from two of those applications. So that's not a great batting average if you follow baseball. And most of the time, what we hear back from students when they're having a hard time getting a job is that, hey, I have a strong GPA. I was a really good student. Why isn't anyone calling me back? As we discuss with our employers, a lot of times what they'll say is that they're passing over a number of our students because they lack those verifiable skills, usually through something like an internship or other experiential learning opportunity. And those are a lot of times missing. But really, here's what they're missing. It's not the internship in and of itself, because a lot of our students have good experience that's on their resumes. It's who is recommending them. Who do these employers know that can recommend students for a job where they don't have any social capital and they don't really know anybody? And that is something that we're exploring here at our career services department at Texas State, is helping students understand who their social network is and who can recommend them ultimately for a job. And that is the crux, that is the centerpiece of social capital. The reality is, and we've done some of the math here, is that 70 to 85% of the jobs that were awarded to Texas State graduates last year had some form of networking involved with it. We do a postgraduate survey in which we call over 2,000 of our graduates and we ask them not only do they have a job, but how did they get that job and what was the key element in it? And for just about everybody that we survey, they will tell you that those jobs came through a friend, a colleague, somebody that they did an internship with. There was some form of networking that was involved in which that person had a discussion with somebody they could trust. That person then had a discussion with the company that ultimately hired them. This can sound intimidating, but it is the way that most jobs are found today. If you go to LinkedIn or Indeed, there are literally hundreds of thousands of jobs. Trying to find the right job for you is like trying to find that needle in a haystack. So you really need some help there. Secondly, referrals are 4 times more likely to lead to a hire. Part of the work that we did is we asked students, did they have a referral at the time of application? If they said yes, their success rate went way up. And that is something that I know that I don't know if I was expecting it, but it's one of those things that's not surprising, but it also is something that I thought was a little eye-popping. And then last, that the network really creates that opportunity in the long run. So, how do you go about getting it? Well, social capital in and of itself are not only those relationships, but they're also those relationships paired with what your reputation is. Um, what kind of reputation have you built on campus through your leadership activities that you now have been bestowed the honor of ODK with? One of the nice things is if you're an ODK member, that usually means that at some point somebody felt that your reputation was stellar enough to bestow you the honor of being a member of ODK. So you've kind of cleared that hurdle. But how do you help safeguard that reputation over time? You do that through building relationships in which people think of you fondly and are willing to go to bat for you and are willing to say good things about you when asked. The third piece of social capital is this idea of building trust. If I see that somebody is arriving to my front door with their resume in which there are activities and outcomes that I can trust, and those have been communicated to me effectively, then I can trust that the candidate will be the person that they say they are. Everybody sounds great in an interview. Everybody is talking about their best self and their best light. It's only the information that we receive that's a part of your reputation and the relationships that you build that helps us build trust in whether or not we can go with that instinct and ultimately hire you. And then lastly, social capital provides access. It gets you through the front door. In many cases, you get an opportunity to talk to someone about the job before the job is even posted or before you ever apply. Those relationships can provide that access in the long run, and it's something that you should really consider over time. So, why does this matter? Well, once again, as I mentioned before, you already have the leadership experience. We know that. Uh, we've awarded you membership in ODK, and so that's our stamp of approval. That's about as good as a university can say to a student, this student really mattered on our campus. So one of the first pieces I would do is exploit your membership as an ODK member and let people know. I can tell you that I have interviewed lots of candidates, and I always look at someone that has ODK on their resume with a second chance. Because I know that that student has probably done something pretty special while they were a student at their campus. Secondly, experience alone doesn't create the opportunity. It's how you describe the experience and how that description really helps you as well. And then last is translation is the key. Can you translate what that employer is looking for using your leadership experience to tell a better story on how you can impact their organization? And for the most part, a lot of employers, they don't care what you did in the past. They want to see how your skill set is going to impact their bottom line in whatever company you are interviewing for. And so here's the formula. First, it starts with involvement. Already done that. Check. Next, start to map out your relationships. We're going to do a mapping exercise here in just a minute where you do that. Third, continue to build that reputation. You can do that through a number of ways. You can you can get endorsements on your LinkedIn account. You can add stories to your LinkedIn file or other ways of building portfolios. You can show up to alumni events and other opportunities to build that reputation. And then fourth is that builds those opportunities. Most people get jobs when they're not actively searching for one. And I know that for a lot of you, you're getting to an age and a time when you're going to be actively searching for jobs. So that is still one of the things that we do. But that opportunity comes usually with this reputation, relationships, and involvement. By your forming your network, those people can come in and they're going to say, you know what? We haven't been looking for somebody, but we're actually looking for someone just like you. And if something comes up here in the next year or so, we're going to give you a call. And I cannot stress how often this is the case. And we see students who get jobs by these happenstance relationships. So this leads to, what is right now a pretty wicked problem that we're trying to solve, and that is students do all the right things. They get involved, they get great grades, they're good people, but they don't build the networks or tell their story effectively. And that ultimately lowers your social capital score and creates gaps that make it difficult to land that dream job. Your story does matter. Employers want impact, not titles. And you want to tell stories of problem solving and leadership. What do I mean by that? There are two candidates. Candidate A talks about how she was the um, membership chair for her sorority and that she really liked it and she's a people person and she enjoys it. Okay, we know this about what she did. She was the membership coordinator for her sorority. Check, that's great. The second person comes in and says, when I served as the membership coordinator of my sorority, we had an issue where we were behind in total applications to our sorority during the recruitment period, and we felt that we had to do some innovative programming in order to increase the number of students who were interested in our organization. So we put together a membership campaign that included an afternoon reception. We went out and actually talked to a lot of philanthropic organizations through our university to build capacity there. And then ultimately helped by offering up a one-time scholarship for our sorority through the membership intake process in order to encourage people to find it who ordinarily might not find our sorority affordable to be more affordable. At that point, what you are hearing that's different from the first person is not that they had a title, but what they did with that title. They were empowered to actually build some sort of capacity and to solve the problem. When you tell that story, that gets a potential employer really excited, and it shows your social capital acumen, so to speak. And that story framework is really simple. It's the spark. What was the thing that made you go to action? And in this case, it's our applications are down. We've got all these competing sororities on the row, and we need to be able to say that we have just as many gals that are going to be members of our organization as before. And that's not happening. So that's the spark, right? Then what's the work? We went about, we had a reception, we contacted other organizations who might be interested in sending some of their members to be members of our organization, yada, yada, yada. Third, what's the impact? We were able to close the gap, and while we didn't reach our total goal, we wanted to get 60. We got 58 potential members. We feel like we did a great job because at one point we were at 30. And so we were able to increase that yield by 28 applicants. And that really showed that the efforts paid off. Now you've got something to build on. And as you're going through your interview, folks will see that and they'll understand not only are these uh, is this somebody that understands the work, but they understand how to get things done. What also happens is you'll probably tie it back that the advisor to that organization is somebody that's part of your reputation team. So whenever they call and verify that reference is not just going to say, oh, well, Jamie's a good person and we like Jamie. But, I can't really speak to her work because, I didn't really. No, they can go back and say, hey, there was this time that we were really down on memberships and she came through under some pretty difficult circumstances and we were able to raise our threshold of membership applications. So you see, I mean, there's like a huge difference in the person who's able to develop that kind of through line versus a student who's not. Building your network, what are those networks look like? They first start with your core circle. And here's what I want you to not discount. Don't discount your friends. Don't discount those people in ODK, your fellow students. They're probably off and about doing internships and having experiences in which you all can refer each other. Your core circle also contains people like not necessarily family members, but family friends, people that you've worked for before, if you've had a part-time job or some other way of doing some work there. Then you've got your campus network. Who are your faculty members, your advisor, people that you have a common contact with, who can speak to your reputation and your character. Also, your faculty members can really speak to your intellectual acumen with the job. So, finding at least one faculty member who can really speak to how good of a student you are really does help. Here's where ODK helps a lot. Your advisor in ODK is going to be a great reference for you in the long run and part of your social capital network. And then last, what is your opportunity network? Who have you met and exchanged business cards with? I don't know if we do business cards anymore. I'm old. Um, but business cards, whose hands have you shaken? Who can you do a reminder to? They might not remember you. And I can tell you this, there have been plenty of people that I've met before, and then I've forgotten who they were because it was a brief encounter. And then they rejoin and say, hey, I met you at this reception. We were at the E3 Alliance in Austin, and you were talking about chronic absenteeism among high school students. That's a rejoin for me. I might not necessarily know who this person is, but then I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah, we met over by the cake and punch or something like that. Now all of a sudden, I have better feelings about you in the long run. And if I do have an opportunity, I'm going to remember that, and that's going to be a nice hook in the long run. So, who is your opportunity network? What makes it even easier to do is if there happens to be some sort of job or something that you're interested in, you use that hook to then remind them who you are. That pushes your resume to the top pile. And I'm not afraid to say that I've done this many, many times, and I continue to this day to do it. All right. So remember, those weak ties do matter. Just because I've only met you once or I've met you for a short period of time doesn't mean that once I get some of that stimulated references that I won't remember in my little rusty Rolodex up here who you are and why I should care. And that will help in the long run. It helps you expand beyond your inner circle. Think about this. There's only probably about 10 to 15 people in your life that you can say you formed a real serious bond with. Jamie's on the call here. Full disclosure, she was one of my students way back in the day at Stephen F. Austin. I can honestly say with full clarity, I worked with hundreds and hundreds of students. I probably stay in touch with five or six on a regular basis. That being said, I get asked by former students at Stephen F. Austin to serve as a reference or to write a letter of recommendation. A lot less now because it's been a few years, but especially the 10 years post leaving Stephen F. Austin, probably 10 to 15 times a year. I have to use these mnemonic devices. I have to have reminders from those students why I should care enough to write a letter of recommendation. And in most cases, I do because I am then reframed, and I remember having this contact and that student being a good leader along the way. So these weak ties do matter in the long run. All right. So here's your quick activity, and then we'll kind of work through this a little bit, and I think we'll be pretty close to some questions here. Here's your social capital activity map. I want you to start now by, and I'll give you a minute or two to think about this. First, in your inner circle, people you who know you well. Who can tell an embarrassing story about you? Who has been there since day one? Who is one of these people that can speak not only to your personality and your work, but your character? That's your first group. The middle group are people who know your work. What do I mean by that? Your schoolwork. They know what you do at your workplace. All of those types of people. So they might not necessarily know your character. They might not know you outside of you worked part time for them, but or you went to their class. I have 18 students in a grad class right now. They all seem like nice enough people. I don't know anything about them outside of class, but I can speak to their classroom acumen. And then third, people in the careers that you want. You should be able to name at least 3 to 5 individuals with whom you may not have a formal relationship with, but they are working in the careers that you want. And if you picked up the phone, there's a high likelihood that they may pick up the phone as well because you've met them before. You are less likely to have these kinds of people in your network. It's pretty common for me to get these circle exercises back. And students are like, I don't think I know anyone in the career that I want. And that's a problem. So that's where you have to start thinking about where can I build that relationship? Where can I go and find somebody to help me get into this, break into this engineering field? So I've kind of pontificated there for just a second. Um, I want you to ask yourself, where are the gaps as well in this frame, this network map? But um, I'm not going to necessarily ask any of you to put this in the chat because it might be weird. I mean, I don't know who these people are either. But as you're writing them down, be aware of what the gaps are, and then that's where you start to build out your network. You start to go, okay, only about two people really know me well. Maybe I can prime some people who can know me a lot better and have some conversations in which they feel comfortable talking about my character and who I am. Or maybe, maybe there's some folks that I never knew me as well as I thought I did. And boy, that would be nice to find out. All right. So your social capital map is exactly this. Who knows you? Who knows your work? And then ultimately, who can open those doors for you? And don't be afraid to exploit those relationships. And I don't say exploit in a pejorative. I say exploit in a using them as a tool to an end. I can tell you, I use people all the time in this capacity, and I expect my students to use my opinion and reputation as well in this capacity. Also, as somebody who employs a lot of people, I have about 60 employees that I have oversight of. I love introducing people to other folks to hopefully help them get a better job. It's one of the things I love doing more than anything else because I didn't have a ton of people who did that early in my career, but later in my career, I've had a lot of people do that on my behalf. I am here at Texas State University, not because I applied for the job, but because somebody referred me to the job. And the only job that I got my entire career that someone did not refer me to was uh, none. There's not been a single job that I haven't had somebody refer me to apply for that job because they felt like I'd be a good candidate. That included my graduate assistantship when I was at Southern Illinois University Carbondale. That includes my first job as a coordinator at Stephen F. Austin. That includes my job as an executive director at University of Central Florida, and that includes mine now. A colleague of mine at the University of Florida, who I've worked with and presented with a number of times, her name's Gina Master de Casa. She is the special assistant to the provost and the budget manager for academic affairs at the University of Florida. When this job came up, she was really good friends with my boss, Dr. Cynthia Hernandez, who's the vice president. And she literally called Cynthia, Dr. Hernandez, and said, "You don't have to do a search. I know exactly the person who needs to take this job, and I'm going to tell them to apply for it." The very next day, I got an invite to a call with Gina. Gina got on the phone and said, "You're going to talk to this person at the search firm. They are going to set you up with a phone interview, but you need to go ahead and get your resume and all of your information set up in the system." That's how jobs are really communicated, especially at a professional level. Omicron Delta Kappa helps you by opening those doors because we have a network of thousands of graduates who work in every possible career field. And we can ultimately help connect you with somebody to at least have a conversation who might be able to open those doors in the long run. I'm probably over promising there, Jamie, but whatever. You guys aren't, I'm not employed with you guys. So anywho, all right, a couple more slides, and then I want to have some time for some questions. Networking made simple too. Uh, we love it when we're the person being networked with. We love to answer questions, so we like it when you ask questions. One of the things that I find most disagreeable is when someone talks about themselves the entire time without once asking me a question about myself or about my perspective or some way that I can be a part of a solution for them. So ask questions, ask about what their career is like. What's the good parts, the bad parts? How can I really ease into this career? What are some pitfalls? What are some skills that you didn't think that you needed that 10 years later you really did? And so, how can I go ahead and acquire those skills ahead of time? Listen actively. And this is a very important one. This is something that Not enough folks do. They're not listening for affirmations or information that is going to better their position as a candidate. Where active listening really helps is where can I find those through lines and those connections with the person I am talking to that's in a career that I'm interested in or can help me part of my social network? Where can I find some common ground? Here's an example. When I am having discussions with employees, I often will have a discussion and I'll listen to what it is that is important to them, not just professionally, but personally. I've got a colleague of mine who's our communications director here in the division. She is a huge New York Rangers hockey fan. I don't know anything about the New York Rangers. I know very little about hockey, but I was intrigued. So I went and I learned a little bit more so that if I have a rejoin with her, I can mention something about New York Rangers hockey. She feels more comfortable talking to me. I can actually get some additional work product out of her because she feels really connected to me. It's not that I'm exploiting this. I'm truly interested in what makes these folks tick. But what I am doing is I'm listening to where are these ways that we can actually create a sense of humanity uh, with ourselves. And that can lead to the job. Because I will tell you this, and I'm going over a lot of kind of like Prestonisms right now. So just apologize. Whenever I sit down with a candidate, I will tell them immediately, I don't really care what you did. I want to see how you make me feel in the long run. And the social capital, the networking that you're doing helps me get to that point. Um, if you're sitting in a seat across from me in my desk, I know you already have the skill set necessary to do the job. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. We have HR to vet that for me. I don't need to ask those questions. What I need to answer the question on is, can I see this person working in my office and I have to walk in the office every day and look at them in the face? And if I don't think that I'm going to be able to that they're going to fit into that environment, I don't care how qualified they are, I'm probably not going to offer them the job. If I feel like they can do so, not be my friend, let me be clear about that, but be somebody that is a colleague that we can all work together, that person goes way ahead in the list for a possible hire. And so that's listen actively. And then last, follow up. Make sure that you follow up and that you are asking the right questions. And then when you leave, if something comes up, that you follow up, you do a rejoin, is what I like to call it. And you mention, what sparked the rejoin, and that keeps that you at top of mind with that employer. All right, last here, your reputation is key. This is my gratuitous. By the way, this is something that I do with every presentation, and this shows social networking, but it also shows your personality. I always put a picture of Taylor Swift in every presentation that I do. Um, Not because I mean, I do like Taylor Swift a lot. She's a fantastic artist. But just because it was something I started doing about 2 years ago, and I just now do it. And people always wait for the Taylor Swift picture. So anyway, there's Reputation. It's in reference to her album Reputation by the same name. Anyway, um, reputation is built through consistency. What you see is what you get. Um, I know through all the different work that my friend over there, Jamie, has done, that her reputation has been consistent throughout her entire career. And ultimately that is because you don't get too high, you don't get too low, you kind of keep things at an even keel. Secondly, people talk about your work when you're not there. People gossip. What are they going to say? If you are busy trying to influence that reputation by what you say and not what you do, folks are going to talk about that too. This is not going to be a lecture about watch your social media or, watch all of your whatever it is. That we all know that. It's more about, are you a reliable coworker and do you do what you say you're going to do? If you do that, then your reputation is going to be one that is really well received. And when promotions and other job opportunities come up, people are going to want to vouch for that reputation. So some of your final takeaways: social capital is about who you know, so build those relationships, and that's at the center. But on the other side, those relationships help you tell your story and protect your reputation. And with those three in mind, that is kind of the overall formula that you have to get a great job. I do not hide my personality. People know that I love music. They know that I'm an 80s trivia geek. They know that I love to go to the breweries, but they also know that I know my stuff when it comes to student involvement and engagement and when it comes to student success data management. So I've got both sitting there. And guess what? People want to work with me. And I know this, and that's not a humble brag, it's just a thing. And I hope that all of you will have that as well. So let's go back to this activity and telling your story. What did you want to be at age 10? I don't think that should change. That's probably pretty static. But square two, what do you want to be doing 10 years from now? That might be something you want to revisit from time to time. But now that you've been listening in, did that super interesting thing about you change? Have you thought about what that super interesting thing might be? You can put a couple words in the chat if you're so moved. And then that one time that you shined, have you rethought what that looks like? Because if you practice this and if you think about it over and over again, you're going to be much better in an interview process. A lot of times, folks that are perfectly fine candidates, they get stymied a little bit because we will ask some of these questions and they weren't prepared for them because they have not practiced them. These are some of the things that you really want to practice. So anyway, that's I've done way too long already. I've done about 40 minutes. I've got some time for some questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because it's well, maybe. Where's my mouse here? But I'd love to take any questions that you might have.
Ronnie,
Uh,
go ahead.
Hi, thank you. May I call you Michael?
sure, that's great. Please do.
Hi, Michael. So my name is Ronnie. I'm with the Albany ODK Circle. This is tremendous information. The one thing that I really kind of want to circle back to, and maybe this is just me not um, like fully absorbing all of this information yet. So you said that a lot of applications are reviewed through AI. Um, does that change the typical like old school thought of like how long is an application? Like how long should it be? What should we include in there? I do include my ODK circle in all of my job applications. Um, so I was just wondering, like, is how long is too long for a job application? I know that we should look for keywords in the job description and include as many of those in our applications as possible per AI. But I was just wondering what your thoughts on that were.
Well, I hate to say this, but it's going to be depend on the company. But we're finding on average that students are hearing back from employers um, in about 2 weeks. They're usually hearing back something about a first interview. Um, usually what happens is that the AI client, and we've talked to a couple of folks like Dell Computing is one of our, and RFBCU is a big bank around here, and we've had some conversations. When they filter them through, usually those that immediately come to the top are going to come through within a couple of days after the application's open. Those go to the desk of whoever the hiring manager is, and the hiring manager starts calling almost immediately. Um, One of the reasons why having this network is so important is that in some cases you can circumvent that process. You still have to get through the application process, but if you can have somebody actually pull your resume and your application letter from the process. And that is something that I keep hearing back from employers. They will tell you that if you are a referred candidate, they will go in to whatever system they're using and pull that and actually read your application, which is where you want to be. If you're completely relying on the AI filter, you're probably going to have a lot of rejected resumes simply because the AI is not good enough right now to really filter in an effective manner. We've tested it out with a couple of companies, especially with Dell, and we're finding that perfectly qualified candidates were not filtered through. And so that's why this networking process really starts to become more and more important. I'll be honest with you, I don't envy y'all. It's rough out there, especially for early career professionals. Um, so I hope this ultimately will help.
What kind of feedback are y'all getting, Michael, on like the length of resumes? Like, does that, there was always, a rule of with, early, especially early career that they should be looking at 1 to 2 pages, but does that matter whenever AI is screening it? Like, what are y'all's employers telling you?
No, I mean, not CV level. I mean, I'll go ahead. This will sound like a brag, but it's stupid. I have a resume that is an academic resume, and my CV is 62 pages long, with all of the different things that committees that I've served on. Obviously, that's too long. I I go with the 2 to 4 rule. You shouldn't have a one pager anymore. You probably should have enough experience to fill up 2 pages, but once you get past the 4 page mark, you're probably going a little bit too deep. A couple things that we have found through our own filtering of candidates. Too many candidates are doing this. They're actually doing a single blank page with white text that has all of the buzzwords on the page. So think of it this way. It's a 5 page resume, 4 pages we can read. The 5th page, we thought for a while there that this was just a silly blank page that didn't really matter. We ran a screen on them and we found that the student had, or not the student, but the candidate had put all the buzzwords to make sure that it picked up on all the buzzwords. That sounds cheeky. I can rest assured our hiring managers here felt that that was incredibly unprofessional. So that person, while they were a good candidate, were eliminated from the process. The other is always watch your AI when you clip and paste. There's nothing wrong with using AI clients to help you redesign letters of application or even your resume, but they leave little breadcrumbs all throughout these documents that make it really easy to pick up. And so we've been getting a lot of that. Rebecca, you're right. It seems like why would someone even in the million years do that?
I mean, for me, like I've seen students just literally copy and paste AI responses, and it's like ChatGPT says, and like, let's have a more attention to detail, please, and try to give them some educational feedback rather than this sucks, you suck. No, yeah.
I, we caught a candidate last week reading answers to questions based off of generative AI in real time. Like we had just followed their eyes, which that's crazy. So, you know, what other questions? Let's not make this dark. Let's make it happy.
I do have a question. Sorry, my 2-year-old picked right now to ask me to pick him up. But I do have a question. I was writing down a lot of notes, and I really appreciate the 4 squares activity. The one super interesting thing about you, quote unquote, I know like people have interesting things about us, like professionally, personally. One exercise that I've used in group settings is what is one thing that you think no one else in this room has done? And I don't know, and like, I don't know if you prefer those kind of things in a professional interview setting to be more professional or more personal, as long as it's not, inappropriate. I just was
Yeah.
curious of your thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't use like a story where you like killed a person just to watch them die. That probably is not the way that you want to do that. Um, no, I think that in many cases, most of our professional experience is kind of boring. So unless you've done something truly unique, I think using a personal story is fine. I can say that in the space shuttle case, it was a professional story because I was asked by my university to run all of the tech services for the national broadcast. So on a daily basis, my dad was still alive at the time. He could cut on the TV and see myself and one of my colleagues back there running the soundboard for the press conferences. So that's actually a blending of personal and professional. So I had this experience where I heard the sound of the shuttle exploding. Over the course of the next day, we saw pieces of the space shuttle come into our community. Um, so there's a personal impact, and then that bled into my professional life. And so, how did I deal with that, having both scenarios? Another situation, and this is another time that Jamie was probably around. I can't remember all the years, but when we opened up a hurricane shelter when Hurricane Rita was coming through East Texas, uh, both personal. I had trees down in my yard and I was dealing with storm situations, but also we were running a shelter. And so our professionalism really had to shine. That shows adversity. It shows kind of like there's ways that you can kind of like blend these together because our work and our lives often will come together in some synergistic moments. Awesome. Anything else?
I'll throw in
Everyone wants to go to lunch.
I'll throw in a bit of advice of, that when we think about like the ODK connections and things, things like volunteering for committees and things like that, it's not always the work that you're paid for where these, you can gain these kinds of social capital connections. So, this position with ODK, I'd been involved with ODK as an advisor and things, but part of the way that I kind of had an in with this position was that I had served on the National Awards Committee for several years. And so the person on our team who was the staff contact for awards was the person who this position reported to. And so he and I had a good relationship from us having been on Zoom calls together for 3 or 4 years. And so that really helped, whenever I applied for the position because they knew a lot about me. And so, and I just recently did a reference for someone who serves on our awards committee who's looking for a job, and so those kinds of connections that you can make through ODK or spending time, in volunteering and things like that, that kind of experience translates, it's a transferable skill into employment. So, I know sometimes, especially when you're wanting to break into kind of a new career field, you may not know people who work in that field and things like that, but you know people who can talk about your skills and experience. And so when you see opportunities to volunteer for things like committees, it's kind of a low engagement, high reward. It's an hour or two of your time per month, but you get to build up a lot of additional connections from that.
So I love this idea about the fun facts. Read the bio. That is such a, I wish I need to go back and put that in the presentation. Read the bios of the people that are going to be interviewing you on the websites or take a look at their LinkedIn. I know I actually appreciate when a candidate, I can see who's looked at my LinkedIn. If I see a candidate has taken the time to look at my LinkedIn, that means they're doing their homework. And I like somebody who does homework. So, they come in and I've had candidates that have talked about the fact that I'm a Miami Dolphins fan or that I went to East Carolina and their mom went to East Carolina, or whatever the thing might be. These are little pieces where I think more favorably upon you, and it's just really great. I'm not a pet person, so that wouldn't be something that uh, we've got two cats and I hate them both. And I would never own a dog, so that's just not my thing. Also, I love how William keeps like coming in and out of the screen. It's interesting. Um, so I
Yeah,
know.
that
I'm sorry, Kenley. There are pet people and they're not pet people, and Kenley, you're probably right to not trust pet people. So
Pet people are the greatest.
yeah, you guys are pretty great.
totally unbiased opinion. But yeah, that was when looking through the staff bios. I mean, I think it's the things that you resonate with, which is what resonated with me. So many of the people I was going to be interviewing mentioned their pets as their fun fact, and I had that on my little note, like, great, they love pets, I love pets. Make sure to mention pets or like something that could, involve that. Or if someone mentions their cat and their love of their cat, bring that up. That might give you some extra, brownie points, or just have that like casual connection of like, okay, I would enjoy this person, which Michael, you also talked about. Obviously, that has
Hmm.
a really good impact of being able to have that casual connection in the workplace too, and actually enjoy being around this person beyond the skills and experiences that they might have. So whether it's pets or whatever that connection is, I think can also be super helpful.
Yep. So I think that's about it. Let some folks get back
Cool.
to lunch.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. This was a great presentation, and thank you all again for joining us today. I'll be sending out an email to everyone who registered with a link to the recording. So in case anyone came late or if you want to rewatch it, take some notes, that'll be available to you. So you should see that hopefully by the end of the day. But
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, everybody. Keep an eye out for future webinars. And Michael, thank you for sharing your email. I'll also include that in the
Well, let me put
email.
the right one on there. I just typed it wrong.
Oh, no worries. I'll also include Michael's contact information. So if anyone wants to reach out, you totally can. But yeah, thank you again. This was really lovely.
Sounds good. Thanks, y'all.